Hello, welcome back to Overbooked. I'm Amanda, and today we're going to be doing a book review on the book The Great Believers by Rebecca Makkai. So I read this book last month, and I read it for the book club I'm in called the Girly book club, and I can link that down below. I do that every time I mention this book club, but I really do think that if you like books and you like hanging out with people, or you're like new to a city, it's really nice to just have a group of people that you meet up with once a month, and usually they're pretty good books. This year's kind of been a crapshoot, but they're usually pretty good. I think the remainder of the year is going to be pretty solid book choices, but anyways. The Great Believers is a multi-generational story that goes between two characters. The first being Yale, and his story takes place in 1985, and I think up to like 1990. And the other person's story is Fiona, and she's in the story, but we don't see her point of view in Yale's chapters, but we see her point of view in her chapters where it's like present day, so it's 2015. The story starts off with Yale and his partner Charlie going to a memorial of sorts for their friend who has recently passed away from AIDS. This book is centers mainly around the AIDS epidemic in Chicago during the 1980s, early 90s. The man that they're going to the memorial for is Fiona's brother. So right away, that kind of connects the two characters that we're going back and forth with, and it's kind of nice to see that immediate connection, because you're like, why is the book centered around these two people? But you get more in depth with their connection further into the book. So for Yale's story, we see him struggling with this current epidemic happening around him. Not only is he fairly new to Chicago, so he moved there like 2 or 3 years ago, so he's been there about the same time that he's been in a relationship with his partner, Charlie. And so not only is he new to this city, he's dealing with this epidemic, and he's seeing all these friends that he's made pass away or get sick, and it's a really scary time. Not only is he dealing with this very scary epidemic and like sickness and disease that's going around, he's also just trying to function in his normal day-to-day life. You know, him and his partner are having issues. He has a job that he's works at where he is the finance person for an art gallery, and they just came upon some art pieces, and it's kind of a really full picture story, and he is just trying to get by. I just really enjoyed Yale's character. I thought that he was really well developed, and some of the reviews that I heard about, or like the things that we talked about in my book club, was they didn't really get why there was so much story focused on his like regular life, I guess, like his job or whatnot. But I think it all really ties together, because you know, his boss is in the connection with some of his like normal circle of friends, a situation that comes up with one of the interns at his job that connects with everything else, and I think it just really rounds everything together. Eventually, Yale has to grapple with something that he didn't think that he was going to have to, and it's really just emotional and heartbreaking to read and watch, essentially. Fiona is, in her current chapters, she is not only dealing with her grief of losing not only her brother, but the circle of friends that she also had in Chicago. She lost a lot of friends as well. She's also dealing with the absence of her daughter. So her daughter doesn't really run away, but she just kind of, because she's an adult, but she gets up and leaves and doesn't really like let her mom, Fiona, or her dad know where she is or how to kind of contact her. So Fiona ends up traveling to Paris, France, because she believes that her daughter Claire is there because of a video clip that she's seen. So she stays with an old friend from her Chicago days, and the friend that she's staying with is doing this whole like photography exhibit on a project that he worked on in the 80s. And so she has to kind of come to grips with everything that's happened in her past while also dealing with her present. Some of the complaints that I heard about Fiona's story was kind of the same thing, where they didn't really need to wrap in all this stuff with her daughter into it. It could have just been nice to just figure out how she was dealing with all these emotions. I somewhat agree with that point. It almost kind of seems like the daughter part was thrown in last second, but she does connect it to this overall story. It's all connected, but I wish there was more elaboration on it. Like, I wish there was more detail and more explanation of what the connection is with everything. And I just thought that part of the story was really lacking, that explanation and those details that I think as the reader we would have loved, because I got so much of that in Yale's story that I think that Fiona's was lacking to me. Nonetheless, I really enjoyed both of them. Like, I rated this book 5 stars, so I really liked it regardless, but I guess I would have seen more of that. I really, really recommend this book. I didn't have a ton of background knowledge on AIDS or the AIDS epidemic in the 80s, or even like that it really hit Chicago bad. Like, not that it didn't hit any other places badly during that time, but I guess I just wasn't aware. And that's why I love picking up books that I don't think I would ever really pick up myself. Like, I don't think I had this book on my radar at all until it was the book for my book club. It really, really informed me on this time period and this epidemic and how, devastating it was to the gay community. And I think that the administration at the time just kind of sucked. There was this crisis happening and no one was really stepping up and doing the thing that needed to be done. And there was doctors and other people who were trying their best to help these people, but there's only so much you can do. And there's so much bias at the time. And there was, all these like little facts of things that I would never think of. And it's because I needed the story to remind me that I, as a white straight female, I would never experience any of these things. And it's just very mind-blowing and eye-opening how, like, for example, there was this doctor who I believe was also gay, and he was treating a lot of people during this time in this area in the story. He would try to hide it in their medical records and their history so their insurance companies wouldn't just kick them off their insurance, because that would be a big flag for insurance companies, and they could just kick you off because they don't want to cover your costs of treating you, or they're just biased. And then if you didn't have insurance, you were just kind of shit out of luck. You either kind of had to suffer at your home alone, or you had to go to the county hospital if they had beds. And it was just this terrible thing. And the book was, I just want to say, this book was 5 stars. It was phenomenal. I loved it. The storytelling was so great. She did a ton of research. She got a ton of, stories to work off of for this book. And it really, really shows. And I think it was just a really, really great read. And if you haven't read it and you don't know much about the AIDS epidemic or the AIDS crisis in America, I would highly recommend you pick it up. And if you do, I think it's just a great book to also pick up and read, because it's just a powerful, powerful story. Afterwards, I was talking to some coworkers about this book, and they suggested the show Pose on Netflix, but originally airs on Fox, but Netflix has it on their site. And I started watching that, and it also takes place in the 80s and talks a lot about the AIDS crisis, and it's just really, really, really good. And it was just a nice piece to watch after reading this book. So if you guys haven't watched Pose, I recommend that. You can check it out on Netflix. They only have the first season, but the second season just wrapped, so hopefully it'll be coming up soon. Also, I don't know if there's a ton of reading material / documentaries / movies on this. I tried Googling it. I didn't really come up with a lot. I also didn't super try hard. So if any of you guys that are watching know any great book recommendations to also read about the 80s AIDS crisis in America, or any films or anything that would also just be relevant to this topic, I would love to hear them. So please put them in the comments below. I think this topic is extremely interesting, and I think that it's just something that we all need to be aware of, because we cannot let history repeat itself. it's just something that I'm really still trying to wrap my head around on why nothing crazy, like nothing was done and it took forever for something to get done. If you have any suggestions, please put them below. I would love, 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 love to hear them, love to see them. And that is kind of it. I really enjoyed this book. Honestly, it is so, so good. So if you read it, please let me know what your thoughts are. I would love to hear them. That's it for me today. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I will see you guys next time.